Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vernon Glenn and Bruce McGowan, and we're in the studio here with Noah Jackson, who used to be a baseball scout, and we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second here. We're going to answer the trivia question. What quarterback threw 70 passes in a single game? Anybody?
Noah.
Vern,
I'm going to take a wild guess and guess Dan Marino.
I'm going to go
No.
with Philip Rivers.
No.
Jim Kelly.
No. Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe.
1994.
Wow.
All right.
I'm probably going to guess 10 times and not come up with that.
So, Noah, being a baseball scout, how much of it is like the movie Trouble with the Curve with Clint Eastwood? Where basically, if you didn't see the movie, just tell us basically what is it like?
Yeah, going out and being a baseball scout, the biggest thing first and foremost that you look for obviously is talent, but for what I would always look for is pure athleticism, how easy the motor skills were. So when you see a game and you just get a snapshot of a kid, even if he goes 0 for 1, 0 for 2 with a couple walks, you just see how his body moves, how his body acts, how he throws the ball, how he swings the bat, the pure fluidity of the motion. So for me, you have to bottom line trust your eyes. Now, with the analytics of baseball, what it is nowadays, which is a complete game based on all of the mathematical equations that you can control, that is sometimes difficult to portray to your front office. So when I would go out for a game, I would take notes on players, and it kind of went from a big checklist to then just something small and basic where, I knew who I wanted. You have to know who you want. So it's no different than if you're out at a restaurant or a bar and you see a girl in the bar that you like her for a reason.
Sure.
You have to know, make sure you like her.
Well, you also have to kind of see if the guy's going to be a head case, too.
Yeah, and I'm not really overwhelmed by that. For me, a lot of the best players of all time in any sport have been head cases, and that's just the reality of it. If he's good enough, it doesn't much matter. Everybody says, well, hey, we want great teammates, but a great teammate for me is somebody who gets the job done, and then we can figure it out from there.
Yeah, just look at Josh Hamilton as a classic example. I mean, if he is on, there's no better player in the game. But if he gets off in a bad way,
Well, just think if, like Willie Mays, what he went like 0 for 17 or something. If somebody would have looked at those games and said, this guy's terrible, don't sign him.
Right, and it's one of those things where you might not like the individual and not picking on him because he is one of my all-time favorite baseball players in Barry Bonds, but you might not have loved him, but there was nothing you could do to deny the talent on the field, so you always wanted him on your team no matter what.
Yeah, he was not going to be ignored at all by his play. So,
yeah, talent rules, and that's the bottom line thing for me. So as much as everybody wants to worry about on the field, off the field stuff, sometimes the nice guys don't always make you the best.
do you have to play it close to the vest, Noah? I mean, you like a guy, but
That's a good point.
I mean, you're chummy with some of these other scouts.
Yeah.
But you can't let them know, hey, this is the one I really
It's a
want.
game of poker. I mean, yes and no. There was times in the last 4 or 5 years when I was scouting where I knew if an individual got past one pick that he would be mine. And so you kind of have to play your cards right. So, for example, back when I was able to take Joe Ross in the first round, the 25th overall pick, I knew the Indians who were sitting at the 8th pick, they were going to take him if a young man by the name of Francisco Lindor was off the board. So you kind of go and you kind of talk to the Indian scout and kind of get what his feel is. And be like, oh, yeah, we would never take this guy.
Do you ever make deals with them? Hey, look,
Off the record, we
Okay.
always make pre-draft deals. Everything's always
Yeah.
a deal.
Also, you got to figure that there's going to be some teams, they absolutely need pitching.
Right, but in baseball, because you're so far away, it's really tough to draft for immediate need since there's such projection in there.
What about the case of, say, like a Mark Appel? And, I mean, he had so much fanfare last year coming out of Stanford. Oh, he's going to be the #1 pick. Fell all the way to 8, and then decided to come back to Stanford, I guess gamble, to kind of increase his draft status.
And the hard part of that is that comes down to one man, and that's Scott Boras. And that's the unfortunate reality of it. And now with the Astros in their money-saving mode, they always want to save money, and so they don't necessarily stack their board with best player available. Mark Appel passed the Padres last year, and our front office just wasn't really prepared for him to even be there, and we hadn't even started the conversations with Boras. And with the MLB draft, you have 5 minutes, so if you haven't started the conversation, all of a sudden you're on the clock, it's a little bit too late.
So let me ask you from your personal standpoint, how do you individually feel when you made like a fantastic pick where a guy could go 33rd round or something, and he's a star. Compare that to someone you really thought was really good in Bond.
Yeah, I think the hard part is really with the baseball scouts, because you're with them for so long, you have the tendency to really fall in love with these kids and get to know these kids personally. The majority of scouts all sit down and have home visits, so you get to know the parents, you get to know the families, you get to know the ins and outs of the kid. And there's a lot of time invested. I think some of the times the harder ones are the ones you don't get, or who are just taken just in front of you. You never had that chance to draft that kid because you've had so much dialogue with him for all this time, and now it's gone.
Well, you make a good point because baseball is so much different. When you're out of college for football, boom, you're there. Baseball usually, single A, double A, triple A. I mean, it could be years before they actually.
Unless you're somebody like a Will Clark who just jumps right up there.
Right.
That doesn't happen too often.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the last couple of guys who did it, you have your Xavier Nady and Mike Leake, those individuals who were able to do that. Those are your extremely polished college players. I mean, right now, even what Vern was saying, Mark Appel's probably the best pitcher on 2 or 3 major league staffs right now in college.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
How about your godfather, Dusty Baker? Have you when you guys get together, you guys talk certain players?
We love to talk baseball, but I think the biggest thing that stands out is the lack of instruction that a lot of these players get now, and how drastically different the game is from high school to college to Major League Baseball, and how nothing is fluid. I mean, you have all these different systems in college basketball and college football, but the general dynamics and schemes of it are all the same. In baseball, you might as well be playing a different sport when you're playing college baseball. It has nothing to do with the Major League game whatsoever.
I got a quick question for you here, too. How does a guy like a Mike Piazza, for instance, who was drafted, I guess, as a favorite, Tommy Lasorda, the relative, and he was drafted like in the, 30th or 40th?
The
62nd
round.
They don't even have 62 rounds.
Yeah, and he becomes a star, but how does that happen? Is that just one of those,
or is it just work ethic by Piazza?
It's a lot of work ethic, but it's also, you're projecting. I mean, going back into the Grey Goat, and you have these 17, 18-year-old kids, you don't know what they're going to look like at 22, 23. You have to make an educated guess.
Yeah.
And some of them, I mean, we all know, for me, it's like the biggest kid in Little League never, ever pans out because he's already hit his growth spurt, and he's 12. By the time he gets to 16, he might not even be playing on his high school team anymore. So just the different ways that kids grow and mature, it's a crapshoot with baseball. You don't have to deal with that in football because these are grown men when they come out of college. There's no real guessing about it.
One thing you mentioned when you mentioned about Dusty Baker, it just reminded me that the fans can be so fickle, right? Do you guys remember the game where he was playing for the Dodgers, playing right field, and some guy pours beer on him? He gets all upset looking up the course, right? And then, I don't know how many years later, suddenly he's now the coach, the manager of the Giants, and now he's loved by them. So I hated Dodger, but now he's loved.
It's love-hate, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you wear that Dodger blue and you go to Candlestick in the old days. That was like
that was a war out there.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the Kevin Mitchell story where they were coming up from LA and because Mitchell was a little bit involved with some of the ruffians, so to say, down in LA. They would always try to get him. They would always those Candlestick bleachers were you had to be tough to be out there.
Kevin was
tough
a tough
skin.
He was a tough guy.
He
He wanted you to know that.
Oh yeah.
He was from San Diego area, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here's some notable steals. Good old Joe Montana. He was. It says here he was in the 82nd round.
No. 82nd pick, third round.
I'm sorry. He was picked
Third round.
82nd overall.
Yeah.
Okay. Tom Brady, the
5th round.
199th overall selection. That was a mistake. John Stockton, first round, 16th overall. Okay, Kobe Bryant, first round, 13th overall.
And he was traded right away.
Yeah.
How did the
Well, 'cause he
Hornets
said
feel
he-
about that deal?
Yeah. Well, as I remember, we talked about this before. Kobe said he wouldn't play. He really, except for he wanted to play for the Lakers.
The Warriors could have had Kobe Bryant, but instead they drafted Todd Fuller. Do you
I remember the name.
Yeah, because he was the 4.0 GPA smart guy out of NC State.
That's the guy I want playing basketball. Smartest GPA. Karl Malone was first round, 13th overall, and good old Rickey Henderson was drafted by the Athletics in the 4th round of the '76 draft, and he was the only player in the first 10 rounds drafted by the A's to play in the majors.
Wow. You know what I loved about Rickey? He would get up at the plate and talk to himself, and he would say, "Ricky doesn't like that pitch."
That's right. My favorite Rickey. He's playing for the Padres, I believe. He gets on the team bus, and one of the younger guys, he tries to create a seat for him in front of the bus. He goes, "Hey, Ricky, sit here. You got tenure." And Ricky said, "10-year." Ricky got 15 years.
His dad Sylvester knew Ricky pretty well, didn't he?
And I still actually talked to Ricky. Actually, one of the best, when you were talking about Ricky getting drafted by the A's, we talked about it just this past year, and he said when he went into spring training and went into minor league camp, he looked at all these other guys. He goes, Ricky's better than all of you. I don't know why Rickey wasn't a first round pick.
I remember
And he told
hearing
everybody that right away, and everybody looked at him like he was out of his mind, and lo and behold, there he is.
There he is. Well, it's funny. I remember we had these really good seats, and Sandy Alderson was sitting not too far from us, and Rickey was it's like his last year with the A's, I think, and he catches a foul ball in left field, and even I'm sure when you're actually playing, you're thinking maybe a little differently, but Sandy was thinking the same thing I was, which is because there was a guy on third base, and there was no way that he was ever going to catch the ball and throw the guy out at home. So it was one of those, he really should have just let it go foul. But how does a guy do that, right? I mean, if you have the ability to catch it, how many times?
Which is
go,
natural instinct.
Natural instinct to catch it, right? But Sandy Alderson, he was throwing chairs like crazy.
I remember seeing Willie McGee was one of the smartest players I ever saw. He'd catch a ball in foul territory with the Giants, and it cost him the game.
Yes, I remember that game.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last one here, Nolan Ryan was selected in the 12th round of the 1965 draft. Yeah, that was a good one. Okay,
That brings me to a quick question. Do we have to?
No,
we're going to break?
We're going to come to a break. We're going to come back to that question. Okay. Second trivia question. What 1990 championship sporting event attracted a TV audience of over 1 billion people? First three callers, correct answer, win a free 3-day United States, the Lighthouse Resort, and it was not the Tiddlywinks Championship, I'll tell you that. Website, lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. What 1990 championship sporting event attracted a TV audience of over 1 billion people? Again, 888-660-4495. Don't touch that dial. Make sure you include your email address. Spell it slowly, and we will be right back.
Had to be boxing, right?
No, Super Bowl.
World Cup. That's a World Cup.
World Cup or Super Bowl, yeah.
I was going to say the boxing.
You had to go to the World Cup in '94 when it was in at Stanford, right?
You know,
Yep.
I wanted to, but we could only get one credential.